Hello and welcome to part 2 of the episode on my introspection of my 20s. And if you missed out on the part 1, you should definitely go and check it because I laid out 15 or is it 16? 16 introspective lessons that I learned from my 20s. And just as a recap, I have attached them in the show notes below so that you can it can save you the time and the hassle so that you might not have to go on and search it on YouTube. So it was quite an expositional show because I really went through the details of why and how and the importance of what I have learned from my 20s and what you can actually do to actually benefit the most or actually give you a better footing in your 20s. Those are not laws or they are not rules that are set and cannot be bent, but those are just opinions that I think I have actually done a lot of thinking, and I think that through them I've actually gained quite an insightful experience. And also, I have borrowed them from a few of friends, the cycle of friends that I have. When we have conversations, I always want to actually know what are their value systems, what are the principles, and what they have learned so far. And most of them are quite in and around my age. So I would want to continue, and hopefully today we might have better sound quality. Unfortunately, in the first one we were not able to, but I will try as much as possible to make sure that moving forward in the subsequent episodes we might have better sound quality. And also, as a way to seek promotion and support from the people who are actually taking keen interest in listening to this few conversations or dialogues or monologues, if you want to call them that, please, if you can subscribe, you would be able to help me so that I might actually afford a few equipment so that I might actually improve on quality. From the previous episode, the first part, we had actually talked about 16 very in-depth points that I learned in my 20s, and so from now I will continue as a second part, as a follow-up to that episode, because I was unable to complete that episode. The reason why I was not able to squeeze it into one big episode is because at the moment I'm currently working and I'm in school, and so I'm juggling a lot at the moment, so I might not be able to have that laxity of too much times. But I really wish that I might be able to eventually make this quite a good enterprise for me, because I really want to do this full time. So without wasting so much time in the introductory section, I will continue, and I still want to revisit the caveats and the biases that I talked about as I was introducing this episode or this topic. My caveats are I have an outlook in life that is not pedestrian, because I think life is a game. I think anybody who takes life seriously will actually lose more than the person who sees it as a game. So I do perceive it as a game. Not that I don't take it seriously, but I feel like it's something that is worth to be injected fun, and it's not really that serious. So my other caveat is that I'm from Africa, so what I tell you might not be contextually appropriate to everybody in the world, because we all have different phenotypical characteristics. And the other thing is I will speak majorly to things that have most effect in the context of Africa, but it depends as well. You might actually apply them and still work in your own locality, depending on the type of advice or depending on the type of insight. So, what was salient, if I may revisit the previous or the first episode, was that I wanted to have an episode which actually lays out the insight to live a better or to improve your life wholesomely, especially in your formative 20s, because I do consider your 20s as the time for exploitation. Sorry, the time for exploration. I keep confusing these things. I do consider your 20s as the time for exploration. This is where you will find a lot of adventures, and this is the time that you will be forming a lot of your senses and as well a lot of your sensibilities. So I think a lot of times you actually find advice from people who came from an entirely detached generation. Maybe you find that people in their 50s advising people in their 20s, and that actually presents a lot of generational differences. So I feel like it's up to us, people who are in the 30s and who can relate, probably not 100% with the 20s, but who have not left their 20s far behind. So I think for us, with the changing in modernity and how fast things seems to be changing, I think it's very important for anybody who is in their young adult phase, which is their 30s and above, to actually point out the salient lessons from our 20s, and which may have profound, insightful advice to the people who are currently in their 20s. And that's why I've actually taken the initiative to actually curate this episode and the previous one, the part one part. So yes, you might continue listening to this part two, but it will be important as well to try and make out some time and listen to the part one, because there are a few things that are very fundamental, and I talked about it in that episode. So I would want to go to the number 16 lesson, or rather an introspective thing that I saw in my 20s. And I think from the 16 going down, all I'm going to address is the careers, and probably yeah, I think it's career, mostly it's career, because I feel like career also does play quite an important role in having a stable life. I think anybody who does not have a purpose through career, they will definitely fall behind, and this has a predisposition for depression and all those other lifestyle issues. And most of the time, yes, I would like to address careers and especially give out generic advice on careers. I'm not an expert there, but I've seen things that work, because I think I've been in the job market as well. And this job market is contextually appropriate only to the Africans. And again, I said I will not mention the specific country because of a lot of political issues and everything. But so moving forward, I think I'll talk about the career, what you can do in your 20s so that you can actually stand a better chance to have a fulfilling career. And this is not law, and every rule has an exception. And again, as I keep saying, all knowledge is conjecture. So these are just my good gestures. These are just my good guesses, and I seek out to try and give a good explanation so that you might actually understand where I'm coming from. So number 16, yeah, number 16. My advice is when you're in your 20s, you should find a technical skill, and probably not purely from the financial reward point of view only, and because that will be a bonus eventually, but you should start from your own personal satisfaction and purpose, because purpose brings out passion and not the other way around. So it is very important to find the technical skill. I think considering the fact that we are now moving away from the industrial revolution age, especially in Africa, because of the introduction of technology, I think you should be able to find a technical skill. This is important because technical skill are a very good leverage to actually making or earning a livelihood. And there is also quite a fulfilling undertone or undercurrent with the technical skill, because you actually trade something worthy or something of value with the society. And I also say this because I realized that there is a surge in rhetorical courses, is what I call them. And because of the dynamics in Africa right now, I find that there's a lot of disparage, or that there's a lot of split between the technical and the rhetoric, because I think the rhetoric are actually making a lot of money, and with that they are making a lot of noise, but now they do not actually exchange anything of value with the society. And when I talk about rhetorical courses, I talk about courses that partake only, or that pertain only talking. This is the political courses or the political fields, and there's a lot of talking. I think primarily also in the how we actually have positioned ourselves in the consumerism point of view when it comes to social media. If you see how we are actually producing content, we do not produce content that have practical value. We are just partaking in noise and chaos and status. I think I talked about it in the first part. So I think my advice still is that, and I've found that a lot of people are struggling. You can see the rate of unemployment right now. And if you actually do a survey, you will realize that a lot of people who are unemployed are not merely unemployed simply because there is lack of employment. I think they are unemployed because of the impossibility, or rather the difficulty in actually applying what they want to study in their courses, because a lot of things are actually driven by the market. Everything is driven by the market. So if you cannot be able to translate the skills that you learned in school into a market in the sense of serving the society, then by default you will suffer unemployment. And I think there's the surge of. I think the surge of rhetorical courses is another thing, because if you actually see the courses offered by most of our tertiary institutions or the universities, most of them are just courses offered for the sake of courses, but they do not have immediate benefit. And when I talk about immediate benefit, I talk about the benefit that you as yourself, as the first person doing the course, benefit from. I think I do preach a lot about technical courses because they offer you skills that you can actually apply fast on your own life, and you can actually use them for self-employment. You can actually start trading in your skill immediately from your environment. You don't have to be employed, because I think you might see it at a global level. There is the decentralization of work. Most people have actually opted to work for themselves because the industries have now been given a lot of autonomous responsibilities, and they can be individually conducted without remotely, that is. So I think the old way of economical the old ways of the economical wheel, the old ways whereby people used to go to an industry and work together, is slowly being decentralized. And because of the advent of robotics as well, technology seems to be really catching up with the menial labors. And I think for us Africans, most of our traded commodity was labor. So you find that right now, labor has become is metamorphosizing, if I might say that, and it's not the traditional form of labor. And I think we have a problem because our generation has realized that, but the people who sent us to school haven't. So you find that there's a lot of pressure from our parents. They do want you to find labor so that it might be a prestigious anecdote for them in conversation, but in entirely in its true nature, it does not really serve the purpose. So there is quite a revolution when it comes to the job market, and I think we haven't talked about it enough. And this might not be the best time too, because it's a very long conversation. And I think if I find the time, I might actually, and I think if I find the time and the person to have this conversation with, this might be quite an interesting one. So number 17 is find a technical skill and try to really immerse yourself in it, because I think a lot of technical skills have a way of actually opening up your, is it your neurochemistry or something, your mind is made to come alive. I think most of this most of these rhetorical questions are purely certified because for reading or most of them are just purely certified for basic skills. I don't think you actually need certifications for reading, writing, or speaking. Those are just bare minimum, and you are not doing anyone a favor, and because those are things that you require, such that courses. And I talk about rhetorical courses in the sense of the I'm avoiding mentioning these courses because I don't want it to turn out as personal attacks on anyone. But I think we do know what I'm talking about. There are courses which you will go for 4 years, waste your time completely, and come back home and you have nothing to show for. And I think we have that pandemic right now because the government is really trying to churn out a lot of graduates without considering the utility value of what these graduates are taking in school. So you find that when you have a conversation with someone who claims to be a graduate, there are still quite a large disconnect between who they are and what they claim they know. So that's why the market seems to be really suffering, and that's why there is a breakdown in the system because it is not translating exactly. So I think what I can actually advise as well in terms of technical, if I might be able to give examples, as I think after reading, writing, or speaking, those are just the basic bare minimum skills that you ought to have in the system right now. So what you can do for technical, even if you don't have the capacity to actually attend any technical school, you should be able to learn how to code. Probably just learn how to code, and also as an addition, you should also have the numerical literacy. uh, I think it actually does help because there's a lot of things in the society that speak the language of mathematics. If you understand mathematics just at the basic level of it, slightly just above arithmetic, you will be able to profit more, especially in your 20s, because coding and numerical literacy go hand in hand. And I don't talk in the sense that I would want you to, or just put yourself in this, or just put a lot of pressure on this advice so that you can be the next Mark Zuckerberg or somebody like that. It doesn't hurt if you become, but as a basic tool, because civilization also requires you to actually know how to code, simply because you ought to know exactly what is driving this technologies right now. So there's a different existence from a person who knows to code and a person who doesn't know to code. Those are two different people, and it's easier to actually plug yourself into the society right now if you have the basic understanding of coding. Yes, and the reason why I also don't encourage the rhetorical courses is they offer what I consider pseudo intelligence. There is no skin in the game. I think Nassim Nicholas Talib talks about the skin in the game. I think courses such as political science or social science, anything that just claims to have the scientific method attached to it or have the scientific and yet it's just rhetorical, just purely on that, I think it just does not have skin in the game. And I'm really scared with people who do not have skin in the game, because it means that you are risking other people's skin in the game. And because anybody who claims that they have a bachelor's degree in political science and they are really helping in the civilization of or the movement of civilization of humankind is a lie, because politics is not a scientific thing. Yes, there's a whole argument right there, but I really don't want to get into that. So, number 17. Number 17 is one that I get from Charlie Manga. I think I have been reading quite a lot from Charlie Manga, and you should. I think these are the people who actually are our major thought leaders. So Charlie Manga is quite interesting because of how much intellect he amassed. So number 17 is big ideas from big disciplines. Expose yourself to big disciplines. I think when you're 20, you should not be able to. You should not be afraid of reading really deep, really intricate disciplines. I think when you're 20, you should be able to get into a library and pick up any book and read it without the fear of misunderstanding it, or just simply because it's a big book. I think that is, you have the time, so I don't think there's an excuse where you can say that you don't have the time. So expose yourself to make disciplines. And for my own personal, this is not a prescription, but from my own personal collection, I think mine are physics. You should be able to expose yourself to physics. There's an interesting uh, there's an interesting copious amount of intelligence. Sorry, there's an interesting copious amount of knowledge that lies in physics. And once you start reading physics, there's a very practical mental models that you will get from physics. There's the thermodynamics. There are laws that you can translate them to, like the second law of thermodynamics. You can actually translate it into reality, and entropies, and all those kinds. I don't want to get into the details, but there are physical laws from physics, and how people, or how these great minds in physics, Newton, Einstein, all those people who had their theories and laws from physics, there's how they thought. If you can go and surpass their theories and really dig deep and find out how they thought, it would change your mind and how you think. Because I did mention something about epistemology in the first part, the theory of knowledge, and physics actually contributes a lot. And the current example is David Deutsch. You can actually find him. David Deutsch actually is quite an interesting. I think he's in the physics realm as well, because he's considered as the father of quantum computation. There's a lot of things that he speaks which are not only secluded to the physics, but also to life. And my other big discipline is mathematics. I think from physics and mathematics are very interrelated, because you can only communicate physics through mathematics. And you can also test, because math is something that is very black and white. There's no fog and mist in mathematics, so you can translate a lot of you can understand nature through mathematics as well. And there are also very interesting there's also very interesting, I don't know if I can call them parts or topics or in mathematics that actually inform the current life. Calculus, algebra, all those things, geometries, all those things actually get you very intricate, very fast understanding of what nature is. I think logic, I think I've mentioned it, that's a big discipline. And logic in the sense of epistemology, just knowing the true nature, knowing the difference or how you can vet what is knowledge and what is nonsense. It's very important. I think it will help you to filter a lot, because when you're in your 20s, it's the most vibrant age, and you find that there's a lot of incoming stimulus because of the current situation. There is media, social media, mainstream media, there's books, there's a lot of things that are coming to life. And most of the 20-year-olds are in their uni phase, so most of the time now you're starting to question knowledge. And I think it's very important that you should have a clear way of thinking. And through epistemology, there is a clarity that comes from knowing and understanding the theory of knowledge. Another big discipline, I think it's the last one, is philosophy, or philosophia, the love of wisdom. You should be able to also as well able to philosophize, think about the big questions, the old questions. What is life? Why is life? What's the meaning of life? What is love? What is all those type of questions? It's okay, because philosophy actually opens you up into the open knowledge creation that David Deutsch talks about. So there's a lot of interesting philosophical texts which you should also be able to expose yourself to. And I think it's very naive for somebody to say that philosophy is not applicable to life. It's very wrong, because a lot of philosophers were actually contending with what was fundamental to the questions of life. So read philosophy books, Rene Descartes, maybe. It's very hard to prescribe philosophy, because philosophy is very personal, and there is no specific entry point to philosophy. And I've seen a lot of people actually post such contents saying that these are the top 10 best, these are the top 20 best, these are the 5 best, and yet it is not really prescribable. Because I realize that all philosophical texts meet you exactly where they should. So if you read Rene Descartes right now, maybe you might not draw a lot. Because I think I did. I have read, initially, I did read Friedrich Nietzsche, but I think my mind was not really there. And I fast forward that 10 years, 5 years after, right now in my 30s, and I sat down and read Friedrich Nietzsche, and it really sunk in. So philosophy is not something that you can prescribe, it will just meet you where you are. But it's always best to start right now. Find there's a lot of there's Herman Hesse. I've actually been reading Herman Hesse, and he has a collection of his letters. No, sorry, his journaling. And it's a very deep because he's a very deep thinker. So there's also Dante, and there's also quite. I do not want to prescribe. So one of my big disciplines is philosophy. So my four, sorry, my five, my four big disciplines, which have informed a lot of big ideas from me, is physics, mathematics, logic, and philosophy. And my advice is this, so that you can actually get the most from this. Do avoid reading contemporaries, especially when you're 20. Contemporaries are diluted, and these are just interpretations from someone, and they might give you what I consider as the winning lottery ticket numbers. So they will take it away from the game. You might not see the whole nitty gritty bodies of this big discipline. So you should go to the basics and the fundamental. Because from David Deutsch says genius has a few moving parts, good explanation that hard to vary, and build from the foundational is an assurance to a great understanding. So find the fundamentals. So if it is, for example, evolutionary biology, you should find the time to read The Origin of the Species, Charles Darwin. Or if you can't find his grandfather's Erasmus, I think it's called Erasmus Darwin, his grandfather's notes as well, you should read them. If it is in the optics or if it is in Newtonian physics, should go and read Isaac Newton's. I think it's called Principia. Find those fundamental, and if somebody is quoting someone else, find the source. Find the source, and I think that's why I do advise people to read. If it's Jungian psychology, for example, should find Carl Jung's book. Yes, I think that is important. Go to the root cause, if or however it is, whatever discipline that you've chosen, really start building from the foundational point. Avoiding contemporaries, because there's a lot of contemporary, and because of the muddled sense of trying to outthink each other in this superficial level, you find that there's a lot of noise, and there's the ratio between noise and signal goes down, goes up. So there's a lot of noise, there's less signal. So don't read contemporaries. You should read contemporaries only and after when you've read the source. Yeah. So there's though avoid surrogacy, avoid proxies, avoid contemporaries. There is no vicarious wisdom. Just have it true and unfiltered. Form your own mental models. Be your own teacher. I think that is what is important. And you are in your 20s. When you're in your 20s, you have the time. Have the time. Just take the time and read the big disciplines. Go back, and we have the gift of the internet. Right. The next point, number 18, is do not waste time, because that is what is of the highest value. And I think a lot of times people don't really put as much emphasis, especially when you're in your 20s, because you have the pressure to make money. So you find that you're wasting a lot of time because you want the instant gratification reward of money. So you don't really appreciate how much time values, no, how much time is valuable. So it's a difficult thing to do because of how much, exactly because of how much hedonism and distractions are going around in your 20s. You want to have fun, you want to do a lot of things that are pleasure seeking, which is fine, part of the exploration. But you should also develop a sense to know that all of that is ephemeral. Yes, it's okay to have fun and break a sweat once in a while, but if it becomes a subsistence thing that you wake up, it's possible because I did. I think the first half of my 20s, I really did seek a lot of pleasure, and with that, I was disadvantaged later on because I realized that I wasted a lot of formative years, and those years could have actually had a very quite profound effect now. But I think it's important because I did know that those were the mistakes that ought to be have done. So do not waste time, uh, because I know, and it's interesting. I know people uh, whose diagnosis is this: they wasted time. So most of the time, you might find it them really thinking hard and wondering what is the cause of why they are lagging behind in things that they should have achieved, and majorly it's because of their wasted time. The person who was effectual with their time, who was effective with their time, has started reaping the fruits later on now. And uh, and waste here is defined as using your time without the certainty of return on the investment. What I mean is that you are not investing in things which have a return on your investment. So you're doing activities that do not have a return on your investment, and this might be, I think, have I mentioned a few? This might be illicit sex. This might be overindulgence, which is too much drinking of alcohol or partying. There's a limit to all those, but when you're in your 20s, your blood is still hot, per se. So you might think that you have a higher threshold to these things, and you might not see yourself sliding. Um, and you should be able to. That's why I actually started out by saying that you should have big disciplines, or get your big ideas from big disciplines, because the moment you actually expose yourself to these big ideas, you start having worthwhile conversations. Because I think in my 20s I wasted a lot of time with mundane conversations, and I think I might be able to say that my personality is an introverted person. So I always lose a lot of social battery when I indulge in this everyday conversation. So I think if I did take the time to read the big ideas earlier on, I think I could have, through exponential and compounding, I might be at a deeper understanding at this moment. So at this point, and in your 20s, most of the investments, I think I talked about in the first episode, most of your investments are not necessarily material investment. Doesn't hurt if you actually put yourself in that. If you have material investments, it's not a subtractive thing. But in your 20s, what has the most profound chance of moving the needle exponentially is the immaterial investments. These are judgment, this is discernment, this is wisdom, emotional quotient, social intelligence. Those type of things should come to they should come to your awareness, and you should be aware that these are things that need investment. So prioritize your judgment, knowing what is judgment is knowing what your actions, the consequences to your actions. I think that is good. If you have a good judgment, it will save you a lot of pain and a lot of suffering and a lot of endless meandering. So discernment, wisdom, all those things can be attained. Wisdom is not necessarily an age thing. Wisdom is just knowing what to do. I think knowing what to do knowing what to do is wise. Yeah, and you can know what to do because of the necessary resources that is available at this point. And personally, I have suffered from this, and most of the time, if you second guess something or someone in the context of a relationship, if you find that you have to convince yourself or even someone for a task or a relationship, drop it. I think that is one of the most wasteful ways of actually spending your time. So if you find that there's an element of doubt in anything that you're doing, just don't do it. If you find that there's an element of doubt in a relationship, you're uncertain, there's a lot of mistiness and cloudiness in how you're relating with someone, don't relate with them. Just make it easier for yourself, especially as a man. I think a lot of men waste their time because they are caught in this wishful and hopeful phase whereby you really are doing a lot of rationalization over bullshit. So save your time. Save your time. It's very better to actually embrace the truth and heal faster and move faster. Do not overstretch your suffering for no reason. If you find that there's a lot of murkiness, just drop it. Intuition isn't a bad medium to tap into. If you find that intuitively you are not comfortable with a particular relationship, just leave it. Just do something else. If you're not particularly, and this is not only because of the escapism. There's a caveat. There's also a caveat that I should mention. This doesn't encourage escapism because I've realized that a lot of people will now use this as a way to find an excuse to drop everything. No, no, no. I mean that if you have spent enough time and you see that probably there is nothing here that seems to be resonating with the person within, or there is a lot of murkiness in communication or in relation, and you have given it your best, just drop it. Just drop it. It's easier. Most of the time, you'll save a lot of time by quitting correctly and quitting fast. Teach yourself how to quit. I think there's a book by Seth Godin. It's called A Deep. Yeah, it teaches a lot about how to know when to quit and what to quit, what appears to be cul-de-sacs and what appears to be dead ends. Those are things that you should be able to start knowing in your 20s because there's a very romantic view in your 20s and there's endless possibilities that you tell yourself exists in your 20s. But sometimes life is not really that, it's not a Disney movie. A lot of things don't work out exactly as you see them in movies or in social media. Some things will be, you'd have to quit them. However, how much you have presumed to love them, or however, how much you have presumed to have invested in them. This actually talks about the sunken cost fallacy. And I think I talked about it in the second point, whereby the first part whereby I talked about the fear of going through an identity crisis. You find that you have this sunken cost fallacy thing where you think you've invested too much and now you can't. No, no, now you can't pull back or you can't. No, no, no. It's okay. It's okay to quit, and quitting correctly and quitting fast as will be the best thing you can do in your 20s because you have an itinerary of things to go through and it's pure exploration age. So go through those things fast. uh, so best use time is that which you have spent on activities which have return on investments that might outlive you. So oftentimes reputation outlives you. So perhaps build a reputation of integrity, high energy, and intelligence. I think those are things that you should consider. Find activities that give you that add to your intelligence. Have a good integrity. Have a good reputation through integrity. Be someone who knows what is done, what should be done in integrity. Don't be a devious person. And I think this affects a lot of youth because of the there's a rise of social media influencers or lifestyle peddling people who would lie to you that quick you can get rich quickly. And most of the time, I refer to Naval Ravikant when I always see that because Naval Ravikant says that if somebody is selling you a rich get rich quick scheme, then probably they are getting rich off you. So you should be able to know that all this thing called life is subject to a process. There's a process to it, and oftentimes what is called a success or what is quantified to be successful is not a destination. It's just a prolonged mini victories or mini rewards that cumulatively add to a successful life. So you should be able to have high energy as well. Always have passion. Find things that invoke passion in you. So you should be able to do that right now. You are 20, so take the time, meditate, and know exactly what you're passionate about, and should also shamelessly pursue your passions. Do not have the fear because of fitting in or because of being a weird person. If you are passionate in reading, I think I did suffer a lot because of that. Fortunately or unfortunately, during my 20s, there was a shunning for someone who enjoyed reading. So most of the time, I didn't take the time to read because I was concerned with losing friends, which costs me dearly because I wish I did start reading, even though right now I'm actually enjoying it shamelessly, and I feel like I denied myself that in my 20s. So do what you're passionate about. High energy is important during your 20s so that you can actually build quite a good foundation in your 20s. So do not waste your time, and equally number 18, do not save your time. I think it's very oxymoronical to say the two, that don't waste your time and don't save it. It seems like it seems that they both cancel out each other, but that's not true. I think uh, this is an obvious response to the previous statement of wasting time. Oftentimes you don't anticipate this. Oftentimes, when somebody says "don't waste your time," you always think in the contrary part of saving your time, and this is not the good thing to do in your 20s because you have a lot of it. Saving time means that you're keeping it, and you're locking it somewhere else. And so, don't save your time. Spend your time. Spend your time. Do anything and everything. Do not save your time. Do anything and everything. So, if you can. If you can find activities that have the highest return on your investment, as I have spoken about in the previous point, do them, because saving your time in your 20s is not necessary, primarily because, as I've said before, those are your exploration phase, because you will exploit what you've explored in your 20s, because I think your 20s are a phase where you're seeking direction. In your 30s, once you have settled for a particular direction, your 30s are the ages where you will be working on your speed. So don't save your time. Don't save your time. Just spend it wisely. Don't waste it. Neither don't you save it. So number 19. Number 19 is I think this is just an advice to plug yourself into the society and start interacting with people in the society. Number 19, you should start a business or a project. Uh, I'm not saying this for the obvious reason of making money. Making money is not a bad thing, but it cannot be your primary objective in your 20s, because most of the time in your 20s, what passes for wealth is that you are living above average, just a normal above average. Most of your physiological needs are met, because I wouldn't expect a 20-year-old to be driving Mercedes AMG or something, or be no. I think uh, it's a very it's a very tall order to demand from a 20-year-old. So mostly start your business or project not for making money, but so as you can have a chance to grow. Without growth, you are simply playing the paranoid monkey mind games of stacking up bananas for the future as a coping mechanism to survival trauma. And I think that is true for Africans, because our survival traumas comes from the fact that whenever we are in our household, what is preached mostly is money. So most of the time when you start a project or start a business, you are metric for measuring the fulfillment that you gain from the business is money, which is fine, but it doesn't pass because it's not sustainable. When you start stacking up bananas, I think you have said that from by playing the paranoid monkey mind games, you find that it gets boring very fast, because how much will be enough. So you have opened up an abyss, and you might play that game for a very long time and be unfulfilled. So start a business or a project because you want to actually get your high energy, get your passions out. Start a business or a project because you want to express your passion. You want to express what you're gifted with. I think we do that to get more reward, and I think we'd actually have to increase and with that we might increase the threshold of the collective happiness that is in our society. I think we have played the money game for too long, and with that it has made us quite a vile and a very toxic society, because everything is measured through the money. That's why institutions that are fundamental, such as the education system, political systems, all the other social institutions, marriages, all of them have been given this monetary outlook, and they suffer from that because money is not money is how you transfer wealth. It's not wealth. I think that's a different thing people need to understand. Doesn't mean that the more money you have, the more fulfilled you are. Oftentimes it's not, because even those people who have engaged in graft, have engaged in corrupt activities, do not have the peace of mind that they claim to have. And it's very noticeable. I think we just don't talk about it because we still live in the monkey tribes. And I think that's why I said I won't be talking about politics or anything that has anything political affiliation. Also, by starting your product or your business, you are exposing yourself to a very important game, which is the economic game. So you will teach yourself financial literacy. I think financial literacy is very important, and not in the loud financial experts analysis kind of thing. But I think you should be able to understand how the capitalistic system worked. And I think I talked about reading people from the fundamental, reading disciplines from the fundamental authors or from the fundamental sources. And I think you should be able to take the time and read The Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith, knowing exactly why it is important. It will teach you to understand the three factors of production: the capital, land, labor, and it will also teach you to understand how the economic wheel is evolving. I think when you don't know these things, it puts you quite at a disadvantage. And especially when you're 20, you should be able to know exactly the numbers game, know exactly what finances and how banks work and all these things. They will give you a better understanding. You might not grow up to become a banker, but it's also important. And I think right now, due to the decentralization of the economics, I think right now it's a very important thing, especially for Africans, because we have existed for so long as consumers, and that is why a lot of things are out of our control, and we are frustrated and we are depressed. But if you actually give yourself the advantage of having financial literacy, or even better, knowing economics, especially microeconomics, knowing what the demand and supply markets are working, knowing a lot of those intricate things. And I think you have the time. 20s is you have a lot of time. So start your business so that start a business or a project so that it can actually expose you to such things. Financial literacy is important. And I think it has been diluted by the sense of identity that is in grinding and the paper chasing, which I find is monochromatic and boring. So a lot of times people won't tell you, and you can see if you played at a global level, or Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett, most of those great entrepreneurs, if I may call them, they really don't have the superficial understanding of business. They have taken the time to go down to the nitty gritties. They know all the details of financial literacy details, and not because that you're right. So you're it's important as well. I think I didn't emphasize enough that the making money part is not a sin, but I think it's too loudly expressed. Money solves your money problems. Beyond that, it will succumb to the law of diminishing marginal returns. And you should be able to know that by your 20s. So you should find an activity that doesn't get boring. Should find, and I don't mean in the hedonistic sense. I mean boring in the sense that it doesn't, you don't start doing it with a lot of apathy. I think you should find something that is passionate, because I see a lot of people in their careers when they start with a lot of high energy, but if you follow them 5 years, 6 years later, they have settled into a very apathetic state and they don't contribute anymore to the career. So I think you should be able to, and most of them you find that it's because their entry excuse, or what caused them to get into that course was, or the career, was simply because to make money. So money actually solves your money problems. Beyond that, like anything else, it just succumbs to the law of diminishing return. And of course, due to context, I would speak from my remote experience, and in terms of starting a project or a business, my wholesome experience in my 20s, and why I think it's fundamental for somebody to start a project in their 20s, is that I tried because of Africa, because of I'm an African. I think I did say that. I tried to start a poultry project, and it did not make me a millionaire, sadly, but it made me aware of the foundational principles in business and investment. I think it's a very small. The outlook of it is a very small project, but if you are aware in the sense that as a model, I got to see the moving parts of a business, mostly the interactive parts. I think that is what is important in your 20s. You should be able to know what moves a business or what moves a project. And everything is a business, even if it's your career. Even if you're a doctor, you're still, uh, yeah, you might be saving lives, but it's still a business. That's unfortunately, that's the true sense. So there's the interactive parts, there's the people parts, there's the counter where where you actually are talking with the people in the supply chain, the people in the market, the people who are working for you, like the employees, for example, or your suppliers. There's a lot of interaction. So once you get to know those skill sets, those soft skills in your project or in your business, the marketing skills, financial literacy skills. There's a whole barrage of skills that you can develop because you oftentimes, because of the highlights, snapshots that we get of successful people, we don't see such details. And because of there's a pandemic of gambling success that is being preached. People want to become overnight millionaires, and that is very sad because if you do not have these financial skills, these marketing skills, this understanding of entrepreneurial skills, you will be able to become of course you will become very poor very fast as well, as much as or as fast as how you became wealthy. So I think with that, I actually started a poultry business when I was in 20s, and I saw there's a lot of counteractive parts as well that involves problem solving parts. They actually help you become a critical thinker, and you just improve in a lot of sectors. And so profits are just the effects of the moving parts, and just social credits at best, or what Naval calls them societies IOUs. These societies IOU because you are giving society what is of value, and they are rewarding you. This is quite interesting thing in retrospect because a lot of times you talk to a 20-year-old and they would blatantly ignore such fundamentals, and their attention will always be on the money. And I think I've had this conversation, and they will vehemently deny that they really don't care about the details or what lies behind the the money making thing. What lies behind the money? They disregard the work, and I think we have formed quite a very weak generation of 20-year-olds because for them most of it what they like is the color, the hue of success. They don't see the work it takes, and that is a very misguided way of seeing it because most of them would resort to these lazy forms of entrepreneur. I can't call them entrepreneurship. Lazy forms of acquiring money, and that's why they actually get really very very frustrated because they haven't built the steel framework of hard work and diligence and patience and trusting the process. And you find that there's this rush for the gold, and there's this insatiable need to become rich without working. There's no skin in the game, as I had mentioned, and it's actually being worsened by the political class, because the political class are actually showing them that you can actually make money without actually putting your skin in the game, which is wrong. And I think this will have, I don't want to talk to predict this, but I think it will have a very huge upset in the system as if we continue with that, because once we do not have enough makers but we have a lot of takers, we will actually create a very radicalized and a very wrong society, for the lack of a better word. And social media has accentuated the successful person without their backstory. So you find that people are falling victim to the snapshot picturesque moments of success. And I put it in this I put that in quotes because I do believe that the implementation of process is what success is, the success and not the result. Probably that is another thing I think I must talk about. Uh, what is actually what should be defined as success is not the result but the process to which you are gaining the success. Do not get me wrong, I'm not putting down the good things that have been brought forth by capitalism, because I also do enjoy these good things too, and even at a deeper level I actually respect capitalism when it is at its pristine and ideal state. When it works, it's a progressive economical tool, but unfortunately we seldom do respect it, and through corruption and impatience we have created a lot of unscrupulous wealth distribution channels. That's why I was talking about politics, but I do not want to get further into that because I think the biggest pandemic currently in Africa is unscrupulous wealth distribution channels through politicians and through religious leaders. It's a very contentious topic, but I don't want to. I will get into this further, but not in this episode. And this is a whole conversation, so it's important as well. It is so important as anything else. I believe starting an initiative or an enterprise for the sense of proprietorship and responsibility. It builds character, especially when you start and fail. I think that's another thing that you need to learn in your 20s. Oftentimes, we have this romantic outlook whereby we have this Midas touch, where you think that you are King Midas, and I think failure is a very important aspect in life, and the moment that you start learning failure and rejection, especially for men, I think that is something that you sadly will experience more times than women, because with time you realize that failure is an opportunity. If you of course if you start blaming, which I've seen as a trend, if you blame someone else, then it's not the opportunity, because there is no end to that blame, and I'm afraid this might be a whole topic, but for the reason why I would want, or I would encourage men in their 20s to start a project or a business, regardless of how small or how big it is. More so, even if it's small, I would encourage it, because the building process, if you can't put yourself at a position where you build brick by brick, eventually when you look back in retrospect, it will be very strong and a very wholesome experience. So, failure is an opportunity. Learn failure, and if you fail, it's a very good point. Of course, it's a painful experience, regardless. You might never get used to it, but it's an opportunity. After a few days or a few years, looking back, you realize that success is just failing in the right direction. So number 20, I think this might be the last point. I think I don't want to get into too much. I don't want this to be a lengthy episode like the first part. So number 20, I think I summarized this in a three part, or a three virtue, or a triad. Let me call it a triad. So number 20 is simplicity, patience, compassion. Those are the three things that I think I would have profited a lot in my 20s. Simplicity, patience, and compassion. I think this, if you are, this might sound a very obstructive point, but I think it's good that you should realize that in your 20s, what has the most profound influence in your life is your philosophy of your life, your how you carry out your life, your character. Those are things that are very abstract but have very important rewards. So this may be a bias from the influence of the book that I keep going back to religiously. That is Tao Te Ching. I enjoy reading Tao Te Ching, and it's not really reading, but it's meditating, because you never read Tao Te Ching. It's about it's among other spiritual books that you don't read. You meditate on them, because it's really difficult. Every time you read Tao Te Ching, or or the Gita or the Bible, it seems to metamorphosize because it's a book that is alive, and so because of its influence and due to the mainstream whitewashing of these virtues and probably those who have commoditized this virtue, the I fear its weight may be lost in the noise, but I feel I should attempt to filter the noise and attempt to increase the signal to noise ratio. This is quite a liberating modus operandi to live by because the Gita preaches love, light, and life, and so I have tried to combine them as love, simplicity, which will give you a chance to carry lightweight. I think living a simple life in your 20s will help you cover quite a good distance. If you actually attach yourself to a lot of desires, a lot of material attachments, a lot of noise because of the influences that are there, the trends, you will have quite a lot of weight and it will bug you down. With the time, you will be depressed. That's an assurance. So, love, simplicity, and live a life of compassion. For me, compassion and empathy are the greatest mark of intelligence because if you are unable to live by if you're unable to put yourself in someone else's shoe, that means that you're not an intelligent person. I think there's a lot of antagonistic living in 20s because there's a lot of status games being played. I think I talked about them in the first part. So you find that people have a low level of compassion because there's the need to become the richest. I don't know why, and you're only 20. There's the need to become the richest. There's the need to be wearing the most expensive watch, and there's just a lot of material attachments that hinder people from living a life of compassion. The moment you start living a life of compassion when you're 20, I think you're setting up yourself in the right direction, and you might actually have a very profound effect in the society that you're in. And by the time you're actually completing your 20s, you're in your 30s, you will start having an accrued reputation that you can withdraw uh, relations from. I hope that makes sense. And finally, light your steps forward one step at a time. I think that's a way to practice patience because there's a rush because of the youth in you. In your 20s, as a man, you want to cover a lot of distance. You want to run, you want to jump, which is fine, but one step at a time is actually good. And I was talking about this with somebody who's close to me, and I think I realized that I would have practiced this philosophy, and I have started practicing it, and it has given me a lot of exponential benefits. So small steps, large distance. So light your steps forward one step at a time. Quick action to patience, but you should be able to be quick to patience. Sorry, you should be able to be quick to action and be patient with the results. I think that's it. That's why I consider your 20s as your exploration period. Free from desires, you realize the mystery, and when you're caught in desires, you only see the manifestation. That's from the Gita. Free